everyone, this is Heather. Thanks so much for joining me. Today I've got a card tutorial and we're going to be making a fun Valentine's Day card with some cute little dragons. Today I'm using the Dragons and Unicorns stamp set from Hero Arts. It's got 3 adorable dragons and 2 really cute unicorns, lots of fun sentiments and little accents and embellishments that you can add with them. My cardstock base is a bright green piece of cardstock, just an 8.5 by 11 cut, scored, folded in half. For my layers, I'm using some stitched rectangle dies from Stampin' Up. I have this really cool paper that sort of looks like dragon or fish scales on it, and I've cut it with the stitched rectangle die. And then using a slightly smaller die, I've die cut some 110-pound weight white cardstock. From the same green as the cardstock, I've gone ahead and cut a little arched banner. I'm also using some grosgrain ribbon. The green is very close to the cardstock color and it has a little bit of a white border. And then I also have some little green gems. Using black pimento ink, I've gone ahead and stamped the 2 little dragons and the set of 3 hearts above them. And I'm going to be using my favorite tri-blend markers from Spectrum Noir to color in my images. I'm going to be using a combination of the bullet tip and the brush tips today. I'm starting off with the light yellow. I'm using the lightest of the shades. And I'm doing the inside of the wings, the belly, the scales, the tip of the tail, and the horns on both of the dragons with the lightest shade. And then moving on to the darker shade of that light yellow blend, I'm going to add just a little bit of shading and shadowing in some spots to give it a little bit of definition. These images are really small, so I'm keeping the coloring pretty simple. For the dragon on the left-hand side, I'm using citrus green. I'm starting off with the lightest shade of the marker, and I'm going to fill in everything that I did not color in with the yellow. So I kind of drew a little belly there with the yellow on the dragon. Now I'm going to go in with the medium shade, which is a little bit darker than what I would normally do. I'd normally go in with the dark, but I want to use that for the spots to give him some texture. So I'm going in with the medium, and I'm going to add some shading and shadowing. And these are pretty similar colors, so I really don't need to do any blending. And then with the darkest shade of the same marker, I'm going to take the tip and lightly touch it around the dragon to give him some nice little spots, which will add some realistic texture. I wanted my dragons to be slightly different colors, so for the dragon on the right-hand side, I'm using dull green. Same thing, I'm just going to fill in everything that I didn't color in yellow. And now with the medium tone, I'm going to go in and add some shading and shadowing. And just like on the other dragon, I'm going in with the darkest shade. I'm going to give this little one some spots. And there's my finished dragons. Like I said, these are really small images, so I kept the coloring very quick and simple. Next, I want to show you how to use the brush markers to create your own background. There's no need to mask these off or cut them out and pop them up. We're just going to draw directly on the cardstock. So I'm starting off with the lightest shade of light green, and I'm going to kind of just sketch a hill, really loose and easy. It's not complicated. Then what I like to do is trace around my stamped image. For me, this kind of helps keep me from coloring over my stamped images. It just kind of gives me a little bit of a barrier so I don't slip and accidentally color those in. And then I'm just going to take the brush marker and just fill everything in below that line that I've drawn. And at first, your lines might look a little sketchy, but once it settles in, those sketch lines will just disappear. That's one of the great things about alcohol markers. I'm going to keep that green marker next to me because we are going to be going back to it to add some more texture to the grass. But now moving on to the sky. And I'm using light blue turquoise brush marker. And again, I'm kind of going around my stamped image getting in all those little openings. And come right up to that grassy hill that I drew earlier. And just like with the grass, I carefully traced around my dragons, and I'm just going to fill the rest of the sky in, avoiding those hearts. I wanted to add a little bit more texture to the sky, so I'm using the medium shade of the green turquoise brush marker, and I'm going to very lightly sketch some lines in there. It just adds a little bit of movement and texture to the sky. So just really light touch, and just add some little streaks. Next, I'm going to use my blender pen, and this is just the regular Spectrum Noir blender pen. Blender pen is kind of not exactly the best name for this. It's almost like a color remover. It has a bullet tip and a broad tip, and when you apply it, it lightens the color. So around the sky, I'm going to use this to lighten up some areas, and again, it just gives more realistic texture to the sky. And it might take a second for that to really lighten up once the alcohol starts to evaporate. So I hope you can see that nice texture that it adds to the sky. To add some texture to the grass, I'm going back to that light green blend. I used the palest shade for the entire bottom. Next, I'm going in with the light green, and I'm just going to make little dash marks, and especially add some up at the top of the hill. And they can be a mixture of thick and thin. Just going to give that grassy texture. Then I'm going to do the same with the darkest shade. And that adds some nice dimension. Using the Coral Blend Original Bullet Tip, I'm going to fill in my hearts with the lightest shade, and then add just a little bit of the darkest shade at the point of each of the hearts. And then around the grass, I'm just going to make little dots, kind of little trios of dots to represent little flowers in the field of grass that they're sitting in. And with the light yellow blend that I used for their bellies, I'm going to go back in and kind of add a center to each of the flowers. This just makes a really nice abstract flower and adds a little bit of color to the bottom of the scene. And here's our cute little scene finished coloring in. Really quick and simple, but I think it's really sweet. For the card sentiment, I'm going to be embossing in white, so I'm stamping out the I think you're fantastical sentiment with clear Versamark ink. I'm going to center that onto my die cut banner. Then I'm going to pour white embossing powder over the top, tap off the excess, and I'm going to heat that with my heat gun. And that nice pop of white on the green works really well with the green and white ribbon that I'm using. To assemble my card, I've placed some tape runner on the back of my pattern paper, and I'm going to offset it a little to the left. I've slipped my ribbon inside of the card, and I'm going to tie it in a knot over on the right hand side. Be careful not to pull too tightly so you don't tear your cardstock. I wanted to have a fishtail on the ends of my ribbon, so I folded my ribbon in half, and I'm going to take my scissors and cut that at a little bit of an angle, and that gives me that nice little fishtail edge. I'm going to do that on the other side as well. I've added foam tape to the back of my stamped panel and the banner, and I'm going to place that in the card kind of off to the left a little bit, and I've only put foam tape at the top of the banner. At the bottom I've put a little bit of adhesive so that that will sit nicely on top of my scene. The last thing I'm going to do is add a few of these little green gems around my card, just to add some nice little sparkle. And here's our finished card. It's a really quick and simple card to make for Valentine's Day. I also think this would be a great masculine card to send to a guy for Valentine's Day. I love to be able to create my own quick and simple backgrounds with the brush markers. It makes creating scenes a lot faster. I hope you enjoyed this card tutorial. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Be sure to check out my channel and subscribe, and I hope you have a wonderful Valentine's Day. Bye!